So I want to show you some adjustments we've made to the Adjust Linestring Elevation command and the latest release. We've done some updates of a lot of the TMLs for things like RPS settings control and also the new layer control that we've been gradually adding into more commands, and we're doing a batch update of a whole range of commands here. But in that process we've also done a few fixes along the way and added a few additional features along the way. And this is one of them. So in the Adjust Linestring Elevation command, it's part of the data prep toolbox. It's in the modify group here, and we can adjust line string elevation. Now when we do that, we've added a couple of changes here. First thing I want to do is pick a line right here, and I want to just go to the profile view for that line. But let me open it once I'm in here. So let's just pick that line a minute and go to the profile viewer. Okay, so in this case here, very often when you want to work with line strings, you'll find that, for example, on a road job like this, there'll be a saw cut here and a saw cut here, and when you build your model, you may find that by the time you put a 2% cross slope out to the edge of pave, that the edge of pave lines here and here and here and here don't jive with the existing pavement of the road out here and over here. In which case, what you want to do is you want to adjust the elevation of either the endpoint here or the endpoint here by a certain amount to bring this up or down to tie it in to an existing grade. You may also need to do this as you approach bridges and things like that, where you've got maybe concrete pavement underneath the bridge and asphalt pavement approaching the bridge and stuff like that. So again, you may have different pavement situations that you've got to resolve. The original Adjust Linestring Elevation didn't handle this, but we've added a function in here called deltas, and if we run the delta command here, you can pick which location set you want to use. So in this case, I'm going to use from location 2 to N because I want to adjust this range of the line here to bring this down by, let's say, ½ a foot to make it tie. I'm just going to use ½ a foot just to make it obvious to you that it's doing it. Now what you can see is there's a bunch of VPIs along this line. In this case, it's fairly straight grade, and over here it's got a bit of a bend in it. So we'll look at the two ends differently. And so we'll say, okay, we're going to go from location 2 to N. We added some changes in the way the dialog works here, so that we've added the 4 locations: start, location 1, location 2, and N. So depending on what you pick here, these will gray out and highlight depending on which options you pick. So in this case, location 2 to end. So location 2, I want to be 200 feet back from the end of the line. So I'm going to pick the end of the line and then just type in -200 here, and that will bring me back to here. And it highlights the length of the line that it's going to adjust here. And at location 2, I don't want to adjust it. So I want to hold this point fixed, but vary the end of the line here. And I want to vary the end of the line here by -0.5. And when you do that, if you watch this line here, if I exaggerate it a little bit, maybe you can see this a bit clearer. And what I'm going to do here is you can say I want to adjust this by 0.5 and then hit apply. And if you watch the lower screen, you can see that it broke here and tilted over here. And these points have all been prorated along. Now this isn't a straight line grade. It may have been a straight grade before, in which case it will still be a straight grade, but it actually modifies each of the elevation points on a proration basis. So ½ a foot here, and then whatever the distance is along each point would get prorated by the same amount. And you can keep applying and applying, and it will keep rotating them until you're happy with the result. If you want to undo, 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 that takes you back kind of where you were at the start. If I do the other end of the line where there's actually some gradient here that make it easier to see, so if I go location, start to location 1, and I say I want to start at 0 and I want a -0.5 on that end, and then for my start location, actually sorry, I want -0.5 on the start location here, so -0.5 here, and if I tab out of here, and location 1, let's say I put it over here somewhere, so I'm going to take into account that whole vertical curve through here and then hit apply. And what you can see there is it holds that vertical curvature. It doesn't try to put a straight line grade here, and so each time you adjust this, it's basically pivoting this around, but pivoting it so all these points are being prorated. And you can see that as you rotate, the curve gets less and less apparent as you do that. So if I go back, you can see the curvature is coming back because the proration effect is taken into account. Okay, so that's the first option, deltas. The second option in here is the same as before, interpolate, and the only difference is the way we've changed this UI here. So again, if I want to interpolate between two locations, location 1 to location 2, pick your location 1 and put in your elevation. So if I put in here 1035 and I want location 2 to be maybe up here somewhere, and I want that to be 1032, and then hit apply. What that just does is it drops this down to 1035, drops this to 1032, and interpolates a straight grade between the two. So you can basically do that if you need to, or you could, for example, just interpolate a straight grade. So if you want to take out this sag curve here and just put a gradient in here, then again I could do interpolate and pick my first location and my second location. So I'm going to put in here, actually let's pick that point right there and get its elevation, and do the same thing with this point right here and get its elevation, and then hit apply. And what it's doing there now is it's interpolating a straight grade between those two locations. So now you can pick existing elevations, or you can pick a long line snaps to get your heights and do your interpolation values. Last option in here is the single elevation. So if I want to put this in as a flat grade between here and here, again I could pick a point right here and pick a point over here and say I want to put that in at 1040, and what it does is it just drops this out and puts a 1040 all the way across between those 2 points. So that's the adjust line string elevation changes. The only other changes we made to it were the ability to use the RPS settings function, which you'll now find in numerous dialogues. For example, when we put in things like show the line direction, like here, this checkbox right here, instead of putting all the show line direction controls in here, we put them in RPS settings. And the same thing applies to when I go to that delta command and I say use from location 2 to N, for example, and I pick this line string. And when I do the location 1 to end, we highlight this line in that color. That's a highlight line color, and those are again in RPS settings. So when I run RPS settings here, RPS settings are now centralized, and the show direction settings are here, and the highlight color settings are here. So we can change this to whatever color we want to make it stand out against what I'm using as my default selection colors. And if commands have their own specific functions like the boring logs or the slope direction or slope indicators, then all these things will basically have their own settings, and they'll all appear in this one dialog. But when you press the RPS settings button, if there's a specific dialog for the command, then the RPS settings will open up the settings for that command as a priority. These other ones like show line direction and line color, they're kind of in a lot of commands, and so they would be secondary to the main command settings dialog. Okay, so that's the main changes. And then when we ask for new layers, for instance, in some commands, the new layer control has been added to those commands also. So that's some updates on Adjust Linestring. Hope you like them. Thank you.